You're listening to Breakaway Wealth, the show designed to help you build wealth faster, think bigger, and break out of the herd. Now, here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, my co-host, Nick Kosko. Welcome back, Nick.
Thanks a bunch for having me. Looking forward to what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. And, it's in the middle of summer when we're recording here, and it's hot here in Florida, and it's hot there in Kentucky. And but you know what? What I don't like to tell people is it's not that hot down here, because I really like when these snowbirds go home in April, and I like those 8 months that I get to drive around without all of the traffic. But as you're driving around, we always have this dilemma when we're driving. We're faced with when we come up to a traffic light, which I see as an opportunity, right? An opportunity. We can do a lot of different directions, go in a lot of different directions when we hit these traffic lights. We can go straight, we can make a left, we can make a right, we can stop. But how do we know what to do, right? And when you hit that traffic light, it's really easy to know what to do when the light's green. And conversely, it's very easy to know what to do when the light's red. But how about when the light is yellow?
Yeah.
How do you make that decision? And I think this is a metaphor for how we make decisions in our lives, Nick, on do we take that opportunity? Do we pump the brakes, or do we hit the gas? Because the gas is good, the brakes are good, but both at the same time, that's bad. And that indecision gets people in accidents and gets people hurt or worse.
And you weren't born knowing what to do when it's green or red, right? It was experience. Like you and I both have soon to be drivers sooner than we actually would care for, right?
Yeah.
And if Rye's like my son, they're astutely watching us right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're learning, they're taking it in. Oh, the light's green, we hit the gas, right? The light's red, we hit the brake. And I watched a scenario where Jake was helping me move the truck recently. And he put one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And I was like, hey, bud, we never do that. I know we're moving at 10 feet, but that's it. You always have one foot, and there's no reason to put your foot on the gas right now. And it's those experiences in life. And we see this in business, right? Guys that are very experienced real estate investors, they have no doubt in their mind when they see a deal, the doors are off of the hinges. It's a gas pedal. It's a green light experience, right? For them. And conversely, they know they have the experience, they get the reps to know that's not a deal. Just talked about one here in the office with one of the guys in the office not an hour ago. He looked at this deal that I showed him and he goes, it's not a deal. And I said, why? And he goes, well, I've made that mistake before. And here's the numbers on that one. And here's this one that you just showed me sets up just like that. And I was like, oh, fascinating. Okay, you knew what to look for. And so to your point, it's, hey, when you're in the middle of gaining that experience, you can have these yellow light moments. And so how do we handle the yellow light moments, right? What do you do, Jim?
And I think that there's a couple other things that happen, right? And again, we're going to stick with this intersection analogy, because let's say as you're coming up there to the light and it's turning yellow, but out of the corner of your eye in the cross street is a semi truck. And you're not sure if the semi truck's going to still, is going to start to go, or you're going to make it past the semi truck. Or it could be a motorcycle because it could be faster. So that, to me, that's kind of like the noise, because you have like the green light, you have the red light, and in between you have the yellow light, which is hard enough to navigate. But then you have these other cars and there are other variables that you can't control.
Yep.
Right. And so that noise, and I think one of the things about being a good driver is to know everything that's happening around you. One of the things about creating financial freedom and financial independence is understanding the game, understanding everything around you, right? And then you'll be more comfortable hitting the gas, hitting the brake, and knowing when, you know what, that yellow light, that's been on there too long. It's been yellow too long. I see cars on each side. I'm going to stop, right? And you know what? Sometimes we don't stop and we think, oh my gosh, man, I got lucky there. Or we do stop and we think, I could have made it, right? And that's going to happen in our investing worlds too, is somebody's going to go and they're going to get to their destination faster. And you're going to think, I should have taken advantage of that. How many times do we see that and we think, oh, I regret not doing this deal or that deal or whatever it is, right? And so what it all comes down to is there's not just one light, right? Each light is like a gate. Each light is like a gate of progress. So we don't navigate one intersection in our lives. We navigate many. And the key is to not get in an accident, but also to make progress. Because if we're like that, 90-year-old that's not going no matter what if I don't have that left-handed green turn signal, I'm not going. I don't care if there's not a car for a mile. I'm not doing it. I'm not only talking about New York drivers, okay?
But, and I know that you love these scenarios down there in Southwest Florida.
I do, because there are times where I react and I lose my patience, maybe my cool, and I'm like, go. Okay, and so it's the same way sometimes with people. Yeah. And I see them and I say, so what are you doing? Like, what's going on? How are you? Well, you know what? I'm just waiting for that green light where it's totally obvious and there aren't any cars around me. There's no cars coming this way. There's no noise. I know exactly what to do. Yep. Sometimes I think, well, good luck. You're going to be sitting here a while. And when you actually hit the gas, you may have already hit the gas too late. I mean, you're going to get through, you're going to be on the other side, but the opportunity is gone. Yeah.
So what are you seeing out there in the marketplace right now? Like, what's going on from a macro and a micro standpoint? We have the privilege of talking to business owners, real estate investors that are experienced and budding, and all in between. And so what are you seeing right now? What are we hearing?
I see caution and I see fear. And I think that if it's in real estate, then I hear all of these things that are going wrong. Like interest rates are too high, right? That's one. And there's all kinds of stories. Oh, this person has this much of real estate and all of it is on an adjustable 5-year. Do you know what's going to happen when that thing flips in 5 years? Blah, 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 right? I hear that. I hear, prices are too high. I hear, you're in Southwest Florida. Do you know what's going to happen to insurance rates? Or if you can even get insurance because of Hurricane Ian? Like, this is, these are the problems. I hear negativity. But what I don't hear from very many people, but I do hear from some people that are going to make a lot of progress is, you know what? Yeah, interest rates are high. So how can I navigate that? Is it seller finance? Is it, is it adjustable? I mean, like, is it some, can I find something in the market that's priced to where it still makes sense? Because it's all about math, right? So when we have concern and we have fear, we have to have action to overcome that fear, right? And action annihilates anxiety is what somebody told me the other day. And she's a personal high performance coach, and I like the way she says that because it's action cures fear, right? Action annihilates anxiety. Well, what action? So if we see negativity out there, Nick, and that's what we're seeing in the market, or we see caution in the market, what action could we take? We don't want to just go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Oh, well, wait a minute. What would we do if we were in an airplane and we see a big storm and we're worried about that storm? What will we do?
Yeah, you navigate around it. You take in all the data that you can. Like, smart business people don't make decisions until they have to, right? You and I just experienced that in a vertical, right? We could have taken action months, if not years ago. I think it's paid off for us to just be cool, right? So, in the airplane, first thing is be cool, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason to panic. It doesn't matter how on fire you are. There is something to do that is going to lead to success. And so gather information, ask questions. I think that's the number one thing is ask smart people what they're seeing. What am I missing? Where's the solution to this? In the airplane, there's people on the ground you call. There's multiple different departments that you call to gather all the information that you can so that you can make a safe decision. So that's the first thing I see. What about you?
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you change course, you hold, if you think that, you know what, go above or below the storm. I mean, like you manage the obstacle, right?
Yeah.
There's an obstacle, you manage it, whatever it is. We're low on fuel. We're hitting turbulence, manage the obstacle. And it's the same way in what we're seeing right now. So where are prices down? And again, I'm not telling you to go out and invest in any of these things, okay? But is it crypto? Is it franchises? Is it something, is it a business? We've seen an opportunity, a few opportunities in the last 6 months, Nick, you and I, on businesses that I thought maybe would make sense, didn't make sense. We haven't pulled the trigger on anything, but guess what? We're looking, and we're looking for the right thing. Well, and I think that's the thing is it's easy to go with the flow when the light's green. When the light's yellow and you think it's going to turn red, right? Because that's normally what comes after a yellow light. Then it's easy to hit the brake. It's easy to just not take that risk and not make that progress. That's easy. And I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do, but how do you evaluate it? How do you evaluate? Has there ever been an economic time like this in our history? Sure.
Yeah.
There's similarities. What did people do then? Do you know anybody that thrived during that period of time?
Yeah.
Any way to reach out to them, find out what they've done? What did they do? What worked? What didn't work? Right? I mean, all of those things, all the same formulas that we tell people. If you want something, then find somebody who has it and do what they did. Interview them, talk to them. I mean, is it work? Yeah, I wouldn't call it like work, but there's effort that's needed. There's a little bit of resiliency because, you're going to have that noise. What if they don't like me? What if they tell me no? What if all of that, that's there. So what? Push through that.
An airplane doesn't operate in a vacuum, right? Right. And nor should we. The only time, like when you're in a thunderstorm in an airplane, that's the only time that you're in it, right? Like the other times we avoid being in the thunderstorm, but the quickest way out of it is to stay on the course you're on. Don't turn. Don't be maneuvering big. Don't be making big maneuvers in a thunderstorm if you get stuck there. It's not fun being in it, by the way. It's really bumpy. You can wind up pretty uncomfortable for longer than you care for. All right. Especially when it's dark out. But
I can imagine.
But we got to stay in it because the airplane's not going to stop moving. Right. So you do have to stay the course. You do have to bring in the people around us. And what I like about the opportunity for us right now for everyone listening is that there's endless opportunity, right? Jim, this morning at my mastermind coffee, have you heard of, I think it's called FPACE? You heard of this funding group?
No.
Okay. Non-recourse lender that is backed by a huge green initiative. Okay. So what we're seeing is banks right now for investors aren't jumping up and down to have a 70 or 80% LTV. They're asking for, in a lot of cases, 50 and 60%. But this organization has come in and said, hey, if you're going to be doing green things like replacing windows and doors and lighting and anything that can be construed as green, well, we'll lend the delta between the 50 and 80%. What did they do? They solved a problem. There's a need in the marketplace, and they brought a solution to the marketplace. And I think that's where the biggest opportunities are, is finding how to solve people's problems. And what problem do we have? I'm not exactly sure what problem you and I have that we need solved right now, other than maybe it's deal flow or whatnot. But if we put our problem solving hats on and went out and sought to solve a big world hair on fire problem, well, guess what? There's a lot of freedom on the other side of solving that problem. And,
absolutely. And you make a great point, Nick. You have to be willing to go through the obstacle and the opposition, and actually you got to like that process, because if you don't like that process, then it's always going to be something you're going to you're going to try to avoid. And if you avoid the opposition, you avoid the obstacle, then there's no way to get past it, right? Flying around something is really difficult, especially if you don't know which way it's moving, right? So in life, you don't know which way the weather's going. It could be going left, it could be going right, it could be going north, it could be going south. And so, to me, getting through the obstacle is the most logical way to do it. So then how do we ensure that we have success? Well, one of the things is that, you talked about what banks are doing right now. So what are you doing as an individual banker, somebody who's their own banker? And, it's funny because Nelson, he did this. He did infinite banking from around 1980 to his death in 2019. Well, there's a lot of things that happened economically. There's a lot of times where people said, hey, this isn't a good time to do this or this or this, right? Well, but what happened during that time with banks? I mean, yes, there were bank failures. We get that. But most banks grew during that time in those years, right?
Right.
And so how are you growing your bank and your scope to use your bank? And maybe you're lending that money to somebody that needs that gap. And if you have the right collateral, then why wouldn't you, right? Maybe you're lending it to yourself. Maybe you're lending it to your partners. Maybe there's a lot of different things that you could be doing. And what you have to realize is it a green light, a red light, or a yellow light? And what are all the other circumstances? And our brains are so powerful, we can pull up to a stoplight and we can analyze and assess all the different options and the risk and make a decision instantly. And we can do the same things in our wealth financial part of our lives and our quest for financial independence and financial freedom.
You know what we all have to start with? And we've just gone through this in the last few weeks as an organization, right? Because we all got to know what we want.
Absolutely. Yes.
So share with us a little bit about that exercise, because if you know what you want, then it sure as heck makes it easier to determine whether you're looking at a green light, a red light, or a yellow light. So what exercise did we do together to keep, refocus our focus?
Yeah, it's a great question. It used to be called the Dan Sullivan question. It's the R factor question, and maybe it's still called the Dan Sullivan question. I don't know, but I know it now as the R factor question. And it's, Nick, if we were sitting here 3 years from today, looking back through all of the days back to today,
Yep.
what are all of the things that have happened in your life personally and professionally for you to be really happy with your progress?
Yeah. And it's a very powerful question. Jim and I did it. That night I typed up a bunch of stuff. It's sitting there. Hey, what's a win 3 years from now look like?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, honestly, I'm embarrassed to say we hadn't done it in a few years, at least not meaningfully in a few years or a couple years. But it was a great reminder that that's probably something we need to do every 3 months or 6 months, like a quarterly type of thing. Because guess what? You might need to change course. But it sure as heck helps you discern whether or not you're in or you're out. Kind of dabbling doesn't work. And so, hey, what are the highest and best uses of my time? And you start working backwards. Hey, does this fit in with the vision I have for 3 years from now? And keep asking yourself those questions. Apply that litmus test every day to everything that you're doing. Social media has a way of getting you to just sit there and scroll, right? And then you go, wait a second, it's my high productivity time of day. Is this helping me get to that vision for 3 years from now? Nope.
Yeah. And, answering that question is not easy because there's a few things that'll happen. Is you'll aim too low. You won't answer the question because you just, like, for whatever reason, have this negative block in your brain and your mindset that, well, I don't really know. I just want this. And that's such a scarcity way of thinking about it. What I want you to do when you answer that question and when you create your vision is I want you to think big.
Yeah.
And I want you to know you can't think big enough. Right now, if you say I want $10 billion and I want to, live on Mars. Okay, well, maybe we bring it a little bit back to earth, so to speak. But if it was, hey, 3 years from now, I'm making 7 figures and I'm only making 50 grand a year right now. I don't know if you can make it that far or not, but you can make a big, huge progress. I think you can 10x in 3 years.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you only 8x'd, it'd still be okay with your progress because we're not going to live in the gap, right, Nick? So,
that's right.
So maybe what we leave people with is when we think about books and we think about what we recommend is go to strategiccoach.com, get the R Factor question worksheet, which is on there for free. Yeah. I think you can buy a book for like $9, $19, something like that. That's going to explain to you how to do it, right? And then do it. Take the action.
Yeah. Yeah. If what you write down doesn't make you a little bit kind of nervous or a little jarred, then it wasn't a big enough ask, frankly. Like those things, you got to put it out there, put out some bold things.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to go get it. Don't be afraid to go through the storm a little bit. I've been through a bunch of them in an airplane and personally, like all of us, right? And a lot of times we find that you wouldn't have drawn up that you wanted to go through that. But once you get through it, you go, well, that wasn't that bad. In fact, the next time I'm approaching that, I'm not even going to look at that as a storm. Yeah. You might actually like that obstacle that you got to go to, or go through. So anyway, I think it's about having great people around you. It's about having great vision, doing the R Factor question, and just getting at it, taking some action.
I like it. All right. Sounds good, Nick. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your thoughts and your experience and your vision. And thank you all for listening. And we're going to wrap this up as we do every episode, Nick, and with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret: whatever you think about, you will become, and whatever you focus on, that's going to be your life. And listen to these words carefully and take them to heart. Thanks again.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to hear what was shared on today's podcast. If you are looking to discover new wealth building strategies, then go to community.createtailwind.com. That's community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free courses and in-depth training videos designed to help you build wealth and break away from the herd. Click the link in the show notes to access the community today. Thanks again for listening.